known in the late 1700s for her single eye. Well, there are many legends about strange mermaids and strange people and strange events, and probably a good many of our fairy tales have some basis in fact. And a good example is Cinderella. It's said to be a true story that's distorted somewhat. The original Cinderella was named Rhodopis. She was in Egypt, and while bathing one day, a large bird swooped down and picked up one of her fur slippers. Well, when the bird dropped it in the lap of an Egyptian king, he was fascinated, and he set out to find the owner of the cute little slipper. And after many difficulties, he did find her, and he married her and built the third pyramid of Gaza in her honor. And translators later mistook the fur for glass, since the words were very similar. And while we're on romantic stories, we should get into soulmates and mention them. And as an example of what a good relationship with a soulmate can do for peace and longevity, there's a case of one couple that lived in an idealistic harmony together for 147 years, and they were Janos and Sarah Rovin. They were Hungarians who were so attached they both died the same day. This is detailed in the Ripley collection. While the concepts of a soulmate usually involve one other mate somewhere on the earth, the odds are actually much, much better than that. The average person has several dozen soulmates available at any one time, because each person has a number of mind components that split up into male and female polarities when they come into this physical realm. Each component then has several opposites in the opposite sex somewhere on this planet. How these soulmates are formed and found is a much longer story, but suffice to say the Creator didn't shortchange us in any way if we'll but awaken to our potential. Well, continuing into the field of mental concentration should take up phenomenal super strength, because this usually does not come from muscles alone. There's a special energy, sometimes called chi or prana, that can be used by some persons to overcome gravity and change gravity, change strength. And persons who have a great deal of brain energy or electrical wattage can often perform miracles of strength. This is brought on by practice sometimes, and sometimes by accident. An Italian named Colli weighed 160 pounds as an example of the latter, and he was born with 2 hearts and had a great deal of chi energy. Had a great deal of circulation, which upped his potential wattage. He could rip telephone books in two and toss 100-pound objects around like they were toys. And many of the Oriental martial arts practitioners can do amazing things by the chi energy that they use, not by the body's strength or size. The famous Sandow here was well built, but he could do amazing things with his body. Had control over his muscles to a high degree, great deal of chi energy. Paul Anderson of Georgia is a recent muscular strong man of the 20s who could lift 400 pounds. He lifted over 6,000 pounds with his back, and later he became the Olympic champion. Earlier strong men included Louis Cyr, who could lift 4,000 pounds upright in the late 80s. Now, iron-jawed men like this have many times the normal jaw strength of 50 or 60 pounds. Shown here, he'd probably have 500 or 600 or 700 pounds of jaw strength. A Frenchman once exerted 534 pounds of force. Milo of Cortona was an Olympic champion 500 years before Christ. He could carry bulls weighing around a ton across the arena of that time. Well, gaining the awesome chi energy doesn't require so much physical effort and a body to match. It requires mental control, controlling the minds. The 3 minds have to be balanced. And one of the ways that some persons could store up chi energy was to get in a group. And many healers could not heal unless they had a group or a following to build up this chi energy that they could draw on and use. Well, walking on fire was another feat that required a lot of ki energy or chi energy. It was originally performed by various primitive cultures and eventually made its way to more modern cultures to accompany the cult and religious practices. The cult of St. John the Baptist in Buenos Aires has many followers. Walk over glowing coals as a test of faith, and dozens of members regularly cross the 1800-degree coals without a burn or a blister. Ripley once thought that the Fiji firewalkers that were so famous did not contend with that much heat due to the porous rock. She did disperse the heat as well as ordinary rocks. But researchers, when they went over, found that these rocks were hitting almost 800 degrees. Present-day Fiji firewalkers had to be absolutely authentic throughout this testing. And the firewalkers practiced today in Fiji and Sri Lanka and the Balkans and even some parts of the United States. And advertisements for training of firewalkers are sometimes seen in the West Coast, New Age journals and periodicals. In August 1982, Science Digest told of numerous Christian fundamentalist firewalkers in 6 southern states. Many fire handlers would use kerosene torches to prove their faith and immunity, and even with a self-induced trance, however, most couldn't contact the fire over about 15 seconds in most cases. There is a limit. Well, overcoming the pain of fire or self-mutilation is about the same. It requires a great deal of mental control. And thousands of persons have been able to overcome pain through mental means or have felt no pain for one reason or another at some time. And some persons have pointed out that animals and humans have different pain thresholds. And what is pain for one may not be pain true for another. A friend of mine had no internal pains. When internal problems developed after her internal sensing was reasonably normal, externally, she had a problem time internally though. She could feel what was contacted on the outside but not on the inside. She almost died when this lack of pain allowed an internal infection to persist and spread. Well, many persons have been able to cut off the mind component responsible for sending the pain messages. And some of the Eastern mystics and cult followers who invite self-torture are a typical example. Some persons have even been able to operate on themselves, and the Countess Rosa Branicka of Poland once removed a cancer from her own breast in 1843, and she lived some 20 years longer. Now, animals are able to block off pain. And one can see a mutilated or deathly ill dog wag their tail when they're given the slightest affection to redirect their thinking. You can see this for yourself. Well, Indian fakirs have frequently cut off the pain signals when they've laid on their bed of nails or wounded themselves, and Zani Azar lay on a bed of nails for 25 hours in 1969 to gain a record. By using hot irons and pins and hooks, the Brahmins of India can mentally stop the pain and heal the wounds at the same time. Well, tortured Christians and army malingerers and shot-up soldiers and yogis lacerating themselves, they all have occasionally been able to shut off the pain involved. It's all a mind development and control method. The eyes have long shed light on the origin of man or beast, and the legends about